Let's go to one of those Democrats. Joining us now, Chairman of the House Democratic Caucus, Congressman Joe Crowley of New York. Congressman, good to see you as always. Your reaction first to the passage of this bill. It'll have to be voted on, as you know, again, because of a couple of provisions in the House today, but it will pass. You've called this bill a scam. What specifically about the bill do you object to?
I think it was a bait and switch on a proportion we've never seen before. The president said that he would help the middle class. He campaigned on that in middle America. And in essence, what he's doing here and what the Republicans are doing today is giving a huge corporate tax break. As you just mentioned, 14%. The middle class, a third of the middle class, 30%, will see a tax increase under this bill. We know that 83 million households will see a tax increase under this bill. So it really was a classic bait and switch. They dangled out there for the middle class. They're expecting a tax cut. And what it's really doing is helping the corporate special interests as well as the wealthiest in this nation, to the tune that has been really unheard of in modern history.
Congressman, are there not businesses in your district that will celebrate the lowering of the corporate tax rate? And what do you think they will do with that money? The argument from Republicans has been that they've got more money, they'll hire more people, there'll be more jobs in your district. What do you say to that?
Well, I think many of them will be celebrating because it means more money in their own pockets. You know, we really have not seen, when we had what was known as fiscal ETI, or repatriation of foreign taxation a number of years ago, we were promised job growth. Very, very few jobs were ever seen grown through the American Jobs Act, is what it was called. So history has shown that when these corporations get this money, they don't put it back into the workforce, they don't put it into research, they put it into their own pockets, they put it into dividends, and it's really not something that's going to help the bottom line. That is the paycheck of the individual in a pay raise by those corporations. I hope it happens. History has shown it doesn't happen.
Congressman Noah Rothman has a question for you.
Congressman, it looks like Act 2 of this thing is going to be approaching non-discretionary spending and seeing if we can bring some of that in line. Where are Democrats on that? Republicans are going to propose probably things like premium support for Medicare and block granting of Medicaid, or sorry, block granting of Medicare and vice versa. Are Democrats blanket opposed to non-discretionary spending reforms?
I think they're going to go beyond that. I think they're going to try to impose change CPI as they have in this tax bill towards Social Security eventually. And the president, you know, back in his promise to the American people, said he would not cut Social Security or Medicare. Well, I got news for him. Paul Ryan is squarely focused now on reforming, so-called reforming those entities. What reforming means to him is cutting them. And so Democrats will fight tooth and nail, as we did when they tried to privatize Social Security, and they failed. We will fight them tooth and nail on these proposals as well.
Congressman, there's clearly, we've seen it in Virginia, we've seen it in Alabama, some sense there's a Democratic wave forming in the country. The one thing that might block that wave would be the continuing growth in the American economy. The sense, as the president keeps saying, that the stock market is booming, unemployment is coming down. We are starting to see some wages picking up as well. This tax bill, initially, you're right, in the longer term, it will raise taxes on middle-class people. Initially, it could make them see that their tax bill is coming down. So do you head into the midterm elections then with something of an economic hurdle that you have to overcome in your pitching?
Well, look, we as Americans hope that we see an increase in the GDP of 4 or 5%. We just don't think that's going to happen. And so what you know, the reality is that many of my constituents back home in Queens will not see that tax decrease. And as well, you know, the economy has been ticking along quite well in terms of the job growth in the United States has been ticking along, the economy, the stock market. This notion that it's only happened the past year is ridiculous. This has been going on steadily for over 80 months now in our country, and to dismiss what happened under Barack Obama...
That doesn't matter politically, right? If you're heading into the midterms and you're the president, you're going to take the credit for that.
Well, you know what? The reality is the American people won't be fooled by what they're doing to undermine this nation, and that is to starve the beast, as they say, starve the government, and all to make cuts to programs that we believe has helped lift up the American people throughout the last 8 decades. Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. These are things that have helped expand opportunities for insurance in this country. Republicans never liked them in the first place, and the #1 goal is to repeal them or to at least reduce them.
So, Congressman Joe Scarborough here. Let me ask, why would Democrats do anything to help the Republicans keep the government open when they're not going to do it on your terms. And basically, Democrats in the House would be doing the bidding of the Freedom Caucus, who's not going to vote, to increase the debt ceiling, most likely.
Well, I think, Joe, the issue really is whether or not we have leverage. If the Republicans can convince the Freedom Caucus to vote for a short-term extender that doesn't increase spending for the new year, they've demonstrated they've been able to do that. But if they can't, they come to Democrats with a bill that is lacking in the issues that we care about, whether it's CHIP, whether it's community health centers, whether it is the issue of Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, Florida and Texas, whether it is DACA, whether it is pension reform. Those are issues that we care about, and it would be more reflective of our values if they need our votes.
Congressman, it's Steve Kornacki. So you want to run against this next year in 2018. Is the message then that you elect Democrats in 2018, you get full repeal, every single rate that goes down because of this goes back up to its current level if Democrats get elected next year?
Look, I think once they pass these tax cuts, as egregious as they may be, it'll be very difficult to turn them around if simply the House is taken over by Democrats. But I would suggest that this was not done in a bipartisan way, that Democrats would look at doing things differently, and I think would focus more on giving a tax break where it's really needed to the middle class. We don't think that this is going to trickle down, as they say, to the middle class, or necessarily help the economy of the middle class as well.
But let me just stay on that point then, because the rates are going down, at least initially, at the lower end of the income scale here. Would you keep those in place? Would a Democratic Congress say, you know what, we'll keep those in place, we'll raise the... Is there part of this you keep in place?
Well, I think we have to look at that. I think there may be certainly aspects of it that would help benefit the people that we care about the most, and those are working men and women trying to make ends meet. What I can tell you, Steve, is that this bill focuses primarily on the wealthiest in this nation, a tax cut for the richest people in this country, including Donald Trump and his family. They benefit the most, by far, of anyone in the passage of this tax bill. Democrats, they're not our focus. The focus for Democrats will be working men and women, people struggling to make ends meet, people who are struggling for a job in middle America, people who have felt forgotten, and certainly by this president and Republican Congress now.
All right, Congressman Joe Crowley representing the 14th District of New York. Congressman, thanks so much.